I'm Mary Stenhouse, 86-year-old. I haven't lived in Newcastle very long. I was born in Surrey, down in London. I had a sister, Sylvia, who was 5 years younger than me, and we were brought up in the army barracks. I was born in an army hospital, and I knew nothing else at all but army. We always lived in army barracks. When my dad moved to another place, we all moved with him. But it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Hello, I'm Sheila Kell, nee Sheila Lishman from Gateshead. I was born and bred in Gateshead before we moved to Leam Lane Estate, before I got married in 1964, which I've been married for 58 years. I've got I had two sisters, one which is now 94, which I lost one in August, and also I lost my brother 3 years ago, which we have good memories of Chandler Street Estate.
I'm Jen Armstrong, but I was christened Jane Armstrong, and lots of people ask me how I got Jen, but it's a long story. I was born in 1950, and I lived in West Denton. I was brought up, went to Wallbottle Grammar, and I now live in Chapel House after being to Cramlington and then coming back to the West End, which I do like. I do like living in the West End. Retired, used to work at Northumbria University, loved it, absolutely loved it. And I've done a lot of voluntary work in the past 14 years. Been a magistrate, a granny reader, a chair of governors, and I like joining all the groups. And I certainly like this group because we get on very well and we've been coming for a number of years.
My name is Anne Gloria Worsley, Anne Gloria Gray, and my maiden name was Worsley. I was born on Boxing Day, so that's how I got the name Gloria. I was born in a Scarborough workhouse and was brought out to Throckley to my great aunt and uncle at 6 weeks old, and I lived there all my life till I was married and left in 1954. I never knew my mother till I was 15 years of age, and I have very little records of her. I had a lovely childhood and was dearly loved and brought up by my great uncle and aunt, which I called Granny and Granda, and their family. And I never went for nothing. I had lovely Christmases. I had bacon boards, prams, sweetie shops, books, and I had, as I say, extraordinary childhood. And in the war, to save the shoe coupons, I wore clogs.
Good. You did it.
My name is Sheila Fletcher. I was born Sheila Henderson. I lived during the war. I was born during the war, but my father was a reserved occupation, so he was transferred to Bishop Auckland. So we lived literally on the railway side in a cottage called Railway Side Cottage till I was about 2.5, and then we came back to Newcastle. My father had bought a house. My mum and dad had bought a house before the war, just before the war, and it was rented during the war, so when we came back we expected to get straight back into it, but we couldn't because there was already being rented, and in those days there weren't the protections that there are now, so they couldn't get the house out. They couldn't get back in the house. So it took a long time and a bit of money, and we lived in, well, I've got about 6 different addresses on my identity card before I was 6, and I started school in Hexham. But then eventually we came back down to Denton Burn and lived in Denton Burn. And I've lived in Denton area all my life until I moved to Chapel House and Chapel Park. And that's where I live now.
Right. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here today, meet you all. My name is Connie Irwin, and I'm 91 years old. I come here, because I enjoy coming, mixing all with people and things like that. I was born in West End, yes, near the shipyard, Swan Hunters. My father worked there. He was a shipwright, and I used to go down and watch the ships, so it was exciting really, as well as I have one brother. Unfortunately, he's no longer here now. And I've got one son, yes, he's 61 now. But I've got no grandchildren, unfortunately. But that's life, isn't it? That's what happens. Yes, yes.
My name is Greta Heron, or Greta, as a lot of people seem to call it. But to me, if it was Greta, it would be 2 T's, and it's not. It's Greta. I've just recently been very ill, according to the nurses, but I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm back home. All I wanted to do was to get back home. I didn't realise how little I can do myself. I was going to do this and that and the other, and I've got children coming from Australia this weekend, my grandchildren, and I wanted the house pristine, and it's a tip. It's nothing that's not clearable, but it's a tip. However, since Christmas, I've been out of my own home. I was found wandering the streets by a neighbour, and I'm just telling this friend here, I wasn't soliciting. No, but Kevin and I have been neighbours for 60-odd years, and he got the police to me, who in turn put me in hospital, the RVI, reluctantly. And I was there, and I seemed to adopt the role of a carer while I was on the ward to a Chinese lady and a Greek lady. But they were delightful people, and the food at the RVI is wonderful, by the way. I was put into a care home, Allen Court. I didn't even know it existed. But of all the care homes that I've had contact with, it was the best. I had a room downstairs, my own, and I was watching the squirrels chasing each other in the morning. It was delightful. And I was there a month when I was itching to get home. I've got 3 lads, 3 sons. The eldest is in Heaton. The middle one is in Australia, and the youngest one, Harrogate. The one in Australia phones me every morning. He's a top lad in a hospital, but he's just come out of hospital having had 2 hip operations. He in turn is married, and it's his children who are coming over this weekend. They're lovely young people.
Very good, Greta.
Oh, it was wonderful, yes.
Right. Hello, I'm Sheila Kell, née Sheila Lishman, which was born in Eldon Street, off Chandler Street. Sharon has just showed me a book which I recognise my dad from playing with the Barney Rees football team. Also, I've recognised quite a lot of people I used to go around with. And also, I used to work at Galsworthy's shop on Chandler Street. And I know the 2 sisters, Joan and Margaret. And we got on very well together. But I do recognise quite a lot of people, and it brings back happy memories. Thank you.
Right, well, this is Mary again. I come from Aldershot, then I lived at Croydon, then I went to Middlesbrough, then I went to Gateshead, then I came to Newcastle. Right, my first husband, the fool he was, he went with a bunny girl. Obviously she had more than I had. Well, she had a tail. Anyway, he left me and he went with the bunny girl, right? I'm now married to Brian, who will be 91 this year. We're still together, been ups and downs, but we're still together. I had 2 children of my own. I had Corinne and I had Andrew. Andrew I lost 3 years ago. Corinne, who is 60 and a school teacher at Darras Hall. I have 2 stepchildren. I have a son, Brian, who is 63, and I have a daughter who is 61. I have 3 grandsons. I have 3 of our own, and I have an adopted grandson who will be 19 this year. And he's absolutely lovely. So really, that is my life.
Hi, this is Jen Armstrong again. The photo I've chosen is when I was in France. When I was at Walbottle Grammar, and I think this is in 1961 or 1962, we went on an exchange programme. And I can't believe that my parents actually agreed to it, because when you're here. So you went to France, and we were twinned, Newburn were twinned with Choisy-le-Roi. And obviously the French students came here and we went there, and we stayed with families. So when you got there, you were, honestly, it must have reminded everybody of when you were evacuated. You went into the local village hall, and then they came out, and obviously whoever decided you were staying with. So off you went. I mean, I went with my best friend. I don't think I saw her for 2 weeks. I mean, really, it's quite frightening when you think about it. The trust that my parents must have put in. But the photograph, I remember having this brownie camera, and that's what I'm doing. In the photograph, I'm holding the camera. And back in 61, it must have been 61, 62, we had beetle jumpers. And I can remember my mother getting a neighbour to knit me 2 beetle jumpers. Do you remember? They were just polo necks, as you'd know them then, but you called them beetle jumpers. And they were knitted. One was black, one was pink. And I thought I was absolutely, you can imagine, the bees and knees. But we had to go they went to school on a Saturday in France, and we had to go to school with whoever you went with. So we went on the Saturday morning, and I was allowed to have these little white high-heeled shoes, and I can remember having them on. But when I think about it, I was there for 2 weeks, and I was homesick. I was wanting to come home. My sister Hazel, she wrote me a letter, and I can imagine writing a letter, and you're getting it all the way over there in France during your 2 week stay. And I felt as if I'd been abandoned, really. I liked it, but it did seem a bit strange when I look back now.
I have a picture at home, a photograph at home, of an auntie who I stayed with when I was young in St Helens at Bishop Auckland, when my mum and dad lived over in the war, during the war. This wasn't taken for me, but it's one that I keep of this old auntie, she's standing in front of an old, what we call a jalopy, an old automobile, a bus, with her conductress uniform on, because she was a bus conductress then. It's a picture that I keep, a very favourite picture, a very old automobile bus, and my auntie standing in front of that.
That photograph was taken by Tom, who was a very keen photographer, and mounted, and it stood on one of the shelves in the lounge for God infinitum. But that was me to look at, and I think, well, do I want to look at me at 19? You've got to live as you live, really. But I've got wonderful neighbours and wonderful friends, and I've got friends in 5 different countries. That was Tom's mother, who died in childbirth. That's the story there. She died during the war when Tom was 9, and his father was brought home on compassionate leave from the Royal Navy to see to his 2 babies, and Tom, of course. And in those days, they all seemed to live within walking distance of each other. And he was in the house of an auntie as much as herself, that was back to back, garden to garden. And he was taken in there, and the girl baby, because Kate, the aunt who took him in, had lost a little girl when she was 7, so she took the girl baby. That left the boy baby hanging around. And then the grandmother, who lived a few doors away, was capable to take the boy baby. But Tom, every morning before he went to school, had to call off to see that the baby was being cared for, and every night he came home from school, he had to call in, and that was Jimmy. Right, well, the father went back to sea, the Royal Navy, and was blown up on a ship called the Boadicea. Now, every year, Tom used to go down on June the 6th to the Portland Bill and take a wreath of poppies. And latterly, he took two of the sons who were interested. Right, Tom was in the army, in the Green Howards, and absolutely devoted to the 2nd Battalion. When he came home, the boss of Eden Camp asked him if he would take over the Green Howards in Eden Camp. So for 20 years, he was the secretary, going back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. Stan Johnson was the owner of Eden Camp, which was a prisoner of war camp at one time. He was 60 when he took that. And he got a history degree at Newcastle University with honours. Now, Stan Johnson subsequently died, as we all have to, and then Tom still continued as secretary of the 2nd Battalion. That's very important. The 2nd Battalion, the Green Howards. And he used to collect comrades at their homes, take them down, take them back home, and then come home exhausted. So the last time was in September before he died. I said to him, Tom, is there nobody else can do this? Because after 20 years, and he was exhausted. I can see him now looking up from the bed when I had taken him a cup of tea. He says, but Greta, I've always done it. I says, yes, but you weren't bloody well 85 when you did it. And I was so vexed with myself for saying that, because he really, really was devoted to them. Yeah.
My grandmother, by the looks of it, the photograph was taken in a studio because it didn't have anything else, more or less, really. She had 5 girls and 1 boy, which was my father. And there was another son, but unfortunately he was killed on a railway line in Cumbria, because that's originally where we came from, was Whitehaven. And what happened was he attended the church as his, and he used to put savings in each week. And what happened when he died, they got a family Bible and wrote in everything about him. She was a lovely lady. They had a small holding here as well as, and what used to happen was the neighbours used to come with the peelings, you know, and rubbish like that, and they had a big barrel of apples, and what they used to give them apples in return for what they got, so they could feed the animals that was on the small holding. Well, this is myself and my daughter-in-law and a chap called Joe's, and what it was, I had esophagus cancer, and quite a few years ago, which I'm still bothered with, never mind. And what happened was they had like a sponsor day at the Vermont Hotel on the quayside to do coming down the side of the hotel itself, you know, and for funds, and that was it. So it was a bit of a scary day, but she managed to do it. My daughter-in-law managed to do it, which was great. I was very proud of her, very, very proud of her. But it was a fabulous day, and everybody collected, you know, such a lot of them. We collected hundreds of pounds. And as it happens, every Christmas time, we get together at the Civic Centre, the Esophagus, you know, like society, and we have an all get together and chat about and how people are and things like that. So it's lovely. Fantastic. You know, it's really nice.
I would like to talk to you about my granda who brought me up. I was brought out to the workhouse, being born in Scarborough, through religion, and my grandfather at 62 brought me home to Mount Pleasant Rockley, and from then I had a fabulous childhood. I had older aunties and uncles at home, which I was spoilt, and I cannot think of a bad moment in my life. My granda was strict. He just used to have to look at you, and you knew. I was never hit, but I knew when I had done anything wrong. We were made to literally go to church with our hat and gloves on. I was christened, went to Sunday school, confirmed and married, all at St Mary's Church at Throckley. I was taken to the gardens and I learned about plants and hens. We had our own pigs, we had our own front garden, we had our own vegetables. We never went hungry in the war, and our bacon coupon was taken out of our ration books because we had our own bacon. We had a small horse called Dinah, which we used to go around the streets with the bins and collect peelings and bread for to feed the pigs. And afterwards, after the pig killing, which was done in the back lane, next to the coal house and the toilet, proper hygiene in them days. The throat was cut. My grandma caught the blood to make the black pudding, and then we went round the streets giving everybody a parcel of liver, black pudding and whatever came off the pig. Dinah developed rheumatism, poor little soul, and friend we knew at Stamford, and Mr. Johnson said, "Come on, Jim, I'll take him home. We look after him." We were sitting one day down at lunch, and Temp Whitfield, who lived in the Colliery Rose, higher up than us, came, knocked on the door, and you walked in. Doors were never locked in them days. "Jim, your Dinah's in the churchyard on the grass. Can it be? He's in Stamford." "Jim, I'll tell you, it's your Dinah." He had gotten loose and he had walked all the way from Stamford to Throckley. Grandad took him back again, and poor old soul, he died in Stamford. My grandad worked in the pit till he was 60. He was 6'3", and he used to work in 18-inch seams, and he always made good of it because he had a big family. My grandmother said the best thing that come out of the 26th strike was that our youngest son wasn't made to go down the mines because they were closed, and he joined a joiner in Victoria Terrace who in them days made all the coffins. And that was the only thing his granny ever said came out of the 26th strike. We weren't allowed to do anything on a Sunday except our meals. Granda used to say, "The Lord made the world in 6 days, surely you can do your housework."